Let's get started. Thank you all for joining us today at the Laugh and Learn. When I first
Meet the
developed
bottle on the ground.
Thrive, it became clear to me that members of Find Your Funny were the perfect fit for teaching the power of humor. In fact, attending a Find Your Funny session is now an elective within Thrive. Today, I'm excited to introduce some fantastic members of Find Your Funny who will be sharing valuable tips and tricks on how to use humor effectively. Please give a warm welcome to Marjane Taylor, Francine Julin, Tom Hobbs, Sue Lehoff, Rosemary Mazer, and Akeem Bennett. I'd like to bring up our first speaker, which is Marjane Taylor. Marjane will be discussing sources for finding and using humor. She's a government worker, a Prius driver, and will ballroom dance for food. So let's bring in Marjane in her ballroom dancing.
Thank you. First, why humor? A few years back, a good friend of mine, who's on the call today, asked me what I was going to do with what I've been learning in Toastmasters outside of Toastmasters. I wasn't sure. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But I had heard Darren LaCroix, the 2001 world champion of public speaking, say that if you want to be a professional speaker, you should learn the craft, become a good speaker. But if you want to be rehired as a speaker, learn to use humor in your presentations. Do you wish you were funnier? Do you wish would you like to be able to add humor to your presentation? Just put a Y or an N in the chat. Yes or no? We have all felt it. You've seen it. Attention spans are shrinking. People are paying attention to other things while we're speaking. But humor helps to grab their attention. There's a quote by someone named Herbert Gardner that says, once you get people laughing, they're listening and you can tell them anything. So humor is useful not only for humor's sake, but to get those serious points across also. The thing, though, that we need to remember as presenters is that humor is the polish. It's not the point. And that's another Darren LaCroix quote. Darren's point is that you have to have a good message to make your message stick, and then uncover the humor in that message that supports that message. I also believe when we started Find Your Funny a few years back, we made a conscious decision to make it about humor versus comedy. And what do I mean by that? Well, to me, comedy oftentimes puts people down. It is, I think of Rodney Dangerfield, I think of others like that with stand-up comedy, but humor lifts people up. It's positive and engaging. So we're going to focus today on humor, not as much on comedy, because all comedy may have humor, but all humor is not comedy. So my goal for today's training is for you to know some specific tips and tools that you can use to help you use humor in your presentations. And I want you to feel confident the next time you try to use these tools in your presentation or you do use these tools. And finally, there's what I want you to do. What I want you to do is to use some of these tips, these best practices, the next time you give a presentation. So now I'm on for some sources of humor. First, look for humor in your environment. Observational humor is one of the simplest ways to add humor in your world. So there are some plenty of sources for humor. TV shows. Do any of you have a favorite TV show that's a comedy? Put it in the chat if you've got a favorite TV show that you have as a comedy. And I see before that, yes, a lot of people want to learn more about adding humor, which is great because that's why we're here today. If you said no, I'd be a little bit worried. Seinfeld, Carol Burnett, Cheers, those are all great sources of humor. And the next time you watch those, pay a little bit of attention to how they set up the humor and how they use the humor. I love Lucy. I love Lucy too, especially the Chocolate Factory. TV shows, so song parodies, that's another good source. Weird Al Yankovic, he's got some really funny stuff out there. Movies, maybe you've seen a funny movie that you like. Uh, there's all sorts of good movies. Bread making, okay, that's one I wouldn't think of for humor. There's got to be a story there. And then books. So I have a few books that I've either been reading or going to read. This one I haven't read yet, Napalm and Silly Putty by George Carlin. All right, if you're seriously stressed about humor, try the Non-Humorist's Handbook by Brian Wolf. One that I've just started reading, The Comedy Bible by Judy Carter. Again, that's a Darren LaCroix recommendation. I love Darren. And my two favorite books, though, I'll grab here. Wink, Transforming Public Speaking with Clown Presence, Don Colliver. It's not as much about adding humor as you might think. It's more about being present in the moment and interacting with your audience. And my favorite, probably humorist, Jeannie Robertson, has this old book and they've redone it with a different cover, but it's Humor, the Magic of Jeannie. 7 Potions for Developing a Sense of Humor. This is a terrific book for giving you some ideas for how to add or uncover humor. And then finally, what we did in Find Your Funny Toastmasters is set up a program called Humor Buddies, where we pair up with each other. You don't have to make this formal program, but if you're trying to add or uncover humor in your presentation and you're not sure how it's going, phone a friend, ask them. Maybe phone a couple friends, because the other thing I found is that everyone has a different sense of humor. What I find to be funny, you might not find funny at all. So yes, look for humor in your environment. Notice everyday ironies and quirks. Identify those little things, those quirky things that people tend to overlook. One of the little quirky things that happened to me recently, I was talking to my humor buddy about having a peaceful, easy feeling. Well, both of us came up with the Eagles song about peaceful, easy feeling, except that for some reason I conflated it with a different song, a different Eagles song, Standing on the Corner in Winslow, Arizona. But at the same time, we both said in Roswell, but I didn't catch that was New Mexico. Plus, it doesn't fit with the lyrics. So it was Roswell, Arizona. And I thought that would be a great song parody. Standing on a corner in Roswell, Arizona, waiting for the aliens to arrive. It's, you just listen and kind of see what's going on with you. Again, identify those little quirky things that sometimes just come up. Exaggerate. Common scenarios. What do we do when we tell a tall tale? We exaggerate, and that makes it funnier. Now, I'm a grammarian at heart, so I love puns and wordplay. For example, the future, the present, and the past walked into a bar. Things got tense. Or, I'm reading a horror story in Braille. Something bad is about to happen. I can feel it. And then there are words or phrases that have double meanings. There's, I think, probably one of the older ones. Jerry Lee Lewis sang about, she got the gold mine, I got the shaft. All right, there's another newer one that's out by Morgan Wallen. I'm gonna need some whiskey glasses to help me see the truth. Okay, so think about when you're creating a presentation and you're looking for something to add, what are some of those words and phrases that have double meanings? And can you add that in there somehow? Connect with the audience by pointing out some humorous observations that they can relate to. Maybe it's your family, your friends, your coworkers. Family is a great source for humor. Try going to a family reunion or a class reunion for that matter. There's some good sources of humor right there. Well, there are plenty of, as I said, plenty of sources of humor. I may not know what I want to be yet, but I figure even if I don't use it in a professional speaking way, one day, hopefully, I'll be at the pearly gates. And I'm pretty sure that God has a good sense of humor. Look at the platypus. All right, thank you. We're going to move now to one of our next presenters. And I've got to find my little sheet, my cheat sheet of paper here. Rosemary Mazer. Rosemary will be sharing with us how creating a character and using props can be used for humor, even with a serious subject. Rosemary is a realtor, a professional clown, and she loves big hair. Please welcome Rosemary Mazer.
Are you a wallflower? Do you get nervous speaking in front of people? Then you need to join Toastmasters. I love props, and props can do a lot for your speech. The impact they can have can be very powerful. You want to pull that audience in. Last year, I was asked to do a speech for teenagers at a Boys and Girls Club on goals. Now, I have given speeches to preschool, and I have given speeches to adults. Teenagers are a different story. So I thought about it, and I thought teenagers, the attention span like preschoolers. So I had the idea. I would do a speech to those children that they would never forget. So I gave this speech at preschoolers, and I taught them about the itsy bitsy spider. And I taught them that when they fell off their bike because there were no more training wheels, to get back on and never give up. And they did, even with their scrapes and scratches. So I went to the Boys and Girls Club and I did my speech. The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. But out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. Well, when I was done, I asked them, what were their goals? Did they have goals that maybe someone or something pulled them down? What did they do in that situation? One girl raised her hand and she came up and she said, I'm going to be a professional boxer. And the other kids laughed. She said, you can laugh at me. She said, you can put me down, but I'm going to get back up. You're not going to knock me down, and I'm going to be a professional boxer. And they all clapped. And all 24 of those teens came up and told us their goals. When they were done, I asked them to give me feedback on my speech. And they said, when you came out with a puppet and they said you were a clown, we thought, really? This is going to be terrible. But when you were done with that speech, you encouraged all of us. It was really emotional. They all stood up and clapped. And I realized that that little puppet prop made a really big impact on those teens. And they said, When we get knocked down by something, we're going to remember how powerful that nursery rhyme was. They really touched my heart. I just think props can be so good in a speech. I want to tell you a couple of things to be prepared for with props. Now that we are meeting in person, it's easy to have a prop and you can walk around the room and people can see your props. On Zoom, you can see your prop. In hybrid, and I'm telling you from experience, be careful. Know your audience, your space, and your prop. Because when you're in person and hybrid with people on Zoom, it's very easy to start walking away and you lose your Zoom audience. So be very careful with your props. Humor is very important to me, and I think it is to all of us. 10 months ago, I had a scare. I was having some health issues, and through biopsies, we found out it wasn't cancer. And then through a lot of blood work, 2 weeks ago, we found out it was not an autoimmune disease. And my doctor called and said, now get out of the house. Because for 10 months, I did not literally go anywhere. I went to him for my checkup. And he said, I'm so glad, but now you need to get out of the house. I said, my hands are disgusting. I went in and he looked at my hand and he said, who's this? And I said, this is Sunny. And he looked and he said, laughter is the best medicine. My clown name is Miss Lottie Da. He looked at me and said, no, you are now Edwina Puppet Hands. He said, I want you to go out, wear Edwina Puppet Hands because you are going to make people smile. I looked at him and said, you know, that's kind of like my favorite philosopher. She says, if you meet someone who doesn't have a smile, give them one of yours. Thank you, Dolly Parton, along with the big hair. You see, when you have humor, use some props. And that, when you're serious and there's a serious situation, use props. I had a friend who was also having chemo last year, and I would take her. And if you ever have gone to someone with chemo, it's a very sad room. And I thought, this is really sad. I need to make these people smile. So I wore a hat that was an LED hat that lit up. And do you know that those people said, what are you going to wear next week? Well, I'm not Tom Hobbs with the man in the hat, don't have that many. But when you have humor, even in a serious situation, laughter is the best medicine. Use your props. Use unusual props. Use big props if you're in a room and you're in a large crowd, because you want them to see what props look like. And if it's too small, they won't see it. One other tip that I would like to leave you with is do not pass your prop around during your speech. I used a flip phone a couple of years ago and young people had no idea. And they said, can we look at that? And I said, as soon as I'm done, I'll be glad to show you. Because once you give your prop to someone, you have lost your audience. So use your prop, use it, then lose it. Don't make it through your whole speech. You want them to see it, get the impact, and listen to your speech. So use the props, get into the character with your prop, and just enjoy life and make people laugh, because laughter is the best medicine. Thank you.
It helps when you're not muted. Our next presenter is Francine Julien. Francine will let us know how vocal variety and body language can enhance the humor in your presentation. She is a retired aircraft electrician, an author, and Tater's mom. Please welcome Francine.
Hello, everybody. Jane talked about finding humor in everyday events. Well, my dog Tater slipped out of her harness in the Winn-Dixie parking lot, and that became a basis for a tall tale speech. 3 years later, my husband is still known as Daddy. We will show you 4 highlights of this speech to demonstrate ways you can add humor to your speeches with vocal variety and body language. In this speech, we start out like a very informational speech. I commonly explain a statistic and how my dog Tater was affected by the affliction, and then the fun starts. Watch the
One day,
video.
my husband said, "Let's take Tater
We
for a
can't
ride."
see the video.
But honey, I'm in. One day, my husband said,
Here.
"Let's take Tater for a ride to the store." But honey, I'm in my dirty work shirt, no bra, and have holey pants. You're dressed fine. You don't have to get out of the car.
Now, did you notice how I gave my husband a funny voice on one side of the screen? And then I came back to the middle of the screen for my response. That helps add definition so your audience knows who is talking. And then when I was doing the dialogue, it is so much funnier saying it in their voice on their side of the screen than saying the he said, she said tedium. Now the dirty work shirt, no bra, and holy pants. That was the thread that held the speech together. It was my funny mantra that was woven throughout the speech. I could have explained how Tater was emotionally attached to her daddy. But to make it funnier, I gave Tater her own voice.
Tater started to talk. Woof, 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 woof. For those of you who don't speak Tater, that means I want my daddy. Daddy, daddy, daddy. Tater is completely devoted to daddy.
And every time I talk about daddy from this point on, I use Tater's voice. That's why my husband is still called Daddy. When we entered the store, pandemonium ensued. And I couldn't just describe what happened. I immersed myself into the story like it was really happening. Magic Clip Master, please.
Butter. And the leash cut through those cans like a hot knife through butter. The manager heard the cans fall like a strike in a bowling alley, and he gave me the look. But what was I to do? I was wearing my dirty work shirt, no bra, and I had holey pants, and I was hanging on for dear life.
I could have said that the manager gave me a look, but getting in close to the camera, giving that look added an element of humor. Developing the speech taught me how to use my Zoom screen, which led me to a new career telling stories on video. But here's something to think about. How would you add an element like getting close to the camera when you're doing an in-person speech? Go ahead, if you have any ideas, just put it in the chat. So I'd like to see it, because when we're doing these speeches on Zoom, we have that whole added element of our view of the camera. Now bringing it home with vocal variety. I start the next clip really excited, explaining what happens after after Tater finds Daddy. Then I revert back to the calm informational delivery. However, I still use the screen position and established voices. Now watch the crescendo and then how I shift back to calm in clip 4, Magic Clip Master, please.
As I sat in an exhausted heap, feeling the pain and embarrassment right there between the candy and the magazines, wearing my dirty work shirt, no bra, and holy pants, the fireman stepped right over me, and I recognized the moral of the story. When you're wearing your dirty work shirt, no bra, and holy pants, because someone tells you, you're dressed fine, you don't have to get out of the car. Remember, those are the famous last words, because
Remember, when you tell a story, it's not just what you say, the voices you use, where you stand, and your stage presence really help make a great story. And just in on the chat, Marjane posted, when you're in person, you could lean in and walk close to one or more of the participants in the room and get that visual like you get when you walk into the screen. Remember, use your Zoom screen for anybody who's going to be competing this year in the online contest. Use your screen, move in close, move back. This is all part of telling a great story using your Zoom box. Back to you, Marjane.
Thank you, Francine. Next up, Tom Hobbs is also known as the Man in the Hat. He'll be showing you one of the strongest tools for speakers and how to use it for increased humor. Tom is a business owner, professional dancer, and a penguin crossing guard. Please welcome Tom Hobbs.
Have you noticed the technology that happens when you're having fun with Zoom? Yes, you can have fun with it in all kinds of ways. You've seen that happen today, and you gotta learn about how to have some more technology fun with Sue in a moment. You already see we're doing some already. These are all techniques, things that you can do. But here's something really powerful that you can do as well. No matter where you're at in your speaking career or industry, you can add humor easily. Like just having like this technology here not working for me. It's just amazing how much fun that can be. Right now, I'm not seeing it come through. Are you? No, because what's going on is something crazy and sometimes out of your control. So the rule of 3, let's just go with that as is. Friends, Romans, countrymen, right? What else could be? Oscar, what would you add to friends, Romans, and who could be something different? Friends, Romans, and
sheep.
Cheese?
Sheep.
Exactly. It could be something totally different, something unexpected, and that's a great way of doing it. You too can add this, that little bit. Rule of 3, 1, 2, 3. You've heard introductions from Marjane. for each one of us. And it can be just something a little bit different. How about another one? Teresa, jump in here. Ready? You can unmute. Shout out what would be the third in this. Lock, stock, and. Lock, stock, and.
Dogs.
Loud and clear again, one more time. Lock, stock.
Lock, stock, and dogs. Lock, stock, and dogs.
Lock, stock, and dogs. Yeah, that's a different twist. Let's throw one more in. Susan Schultz. Lock, stock, and.
Penguins.
And penguins. Yes. Could be a barrel full of dogs and penguins, right? Okay, you could have that too. The rule of three. We've heard them all our life. Hook, line, and. What would you throw behind that one? Let's go to Akeem. Hook, line, and.
Ship.
Hook, line, and ship. Cool. Let's go for one more. Hook, line, and who else is online that hasn't spotted out? How about Rosemary? Hook, line, and.
And pickles.
And pickles. Hook, line, and pickles. One of the more common ones for my father as a fisherman for most of his life. Hook, line, and sinker. So yeah, these are pretty common. Ready, aim, and fire. Ready, aim, and fire. That's a common one. But how do you make it a little bit more humorous? Friends, Roman, countrymen, we added that in there. Lock, stock, and barrel. These rules of three work really easy. But how do we get down to three? Here's a very easy method. Is you just write down 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 10. 10 items that's under the same subject. And pick 2, 3 of them together that kind of blend well. Then write down a total different subject. And see if you can take the first 2 or 3 that you put together with another oddball. Boom, something different. It's like our Jane showed the book about napalm and silly putty from one of my greatest humor mentors, George Carlin. Who? What me worry? George Carlin taught it's about humor is really putting somebody on a train and then you derail them. You get them in a pattern, 1, 2, and then derail them. That's where this hook works. 1, 2, 3, boom. Wrens, Roman, countrymen. You might have another list of items. It could be Klansmen. You could have clergy. You could have inclement. Just numerous items. But find what fits for this audience. Play with it. 1, 2, and 3. It's a great way of doing this. For speakers, use it often. Strong, brave, and scared of spiders. Oh, that's an introduction. You heard that from the 3 bar Jane's been introducing. And wait until you hear what she says about Sue. Ooh, this will be fun. Sue has many options of finding humor. She loves technology, but she also loves her, cats, right? When you have a few props, you can drop them in like Rosemary suggested. And if you got a cat that's walking on your keyboard and you're in Zoom or WebEx or any other online platforms, you can mess with somebody because almost always somebody's got a cat in their room. Play with it. Let it be. Rule of 3. How many cats can you have? 3, right? Can you walk your cat? You can walk a dog. But can you walk a cat? Different story. I came, I saw, I tripped over my shoelaces. A pattern, change in direction. You can do this easily and succinctly. Life is about trains. No, let me rephrase that. Life is about faith, hope, and pizza. That one came out because I was talking to some college kids. Boom. You can tell where their mind was at. So you can do this often, build upon it. Now, if you want to automate it, to get the rule of 10, use artificial intelligence. Yeah, ChatGPT. You can type in there and ask him, give me 10 subjects, 10 words underneath this subject line. And you can tell him, boom, and it'll come up with 10. Then you go, you did good. Now give me 10 more. Now give me 10 more. Until you have a list so quickly. You can also do this with your humor buddy or a group of friends. But chat will do it so quickly for you. This is a great tool you can use. Remember, put them on a train and then derail them. George Carlin. You too can add humor in everything you do. Step forward. Let's find out from Sue how goofy technology. Has she messed with me yet? Yeah, she has. Look at that. She keeps changing my background on there. How does she get away with doing stuff like that? I don't know, but it does make me smile. Marjade?
All right, thank you, Tom. And yes, Sue Lighthoff. Sue will give us some tips on how you can use technology to make your presentations more fun. Sue is a safety officer, Zoom guru, and a cat herder. Please welcome Sue Lighthoff.
Hold on, let me think about it again. Let me think this in a different direction. But wait. So these are things I'm going to show you today that you playing around with Zoom. I'm not going to really show you exactly what I do if you need to, but things you can play with. And so that you can, again, spin yourself. Now, what about putting yourself into a different spot? Now, don't talk to me right now. I'm a little busy. Or for my cats, is there something behind me? Or I'm having supervision, excuse me. So you can just add things like this. You just put it in the background and talk, and people may wonder what you're doing, and you're just acting completely like you're knowing. The other few things you can do, you can also play with some graphs. And I found a few, so when you're before you're putting real graphs out there, and then of course, don't do this during a business meeting, it's depending on if you can get away with it. But you can put some slides out. Let me see. Whoops. Okay. Thank you. There we go. So there we go. Here's a graph that shows absolutely nothing, but it'll get people wondering what the heck you're doing. And let's see, I was one thing I was not able to do. And you can also take it, and this is fun. You have to make sure you're okay with somebody's okay with it. You can be, let's see if I can do it. It's not had it all ready to go. And in color, let's go with this. So you can take somebody's presentation and write on it, "Hey, Tom," or put a little smiley face. Again, make sure the person is aware what you're doing. Don't do it without them knowing it, but it is something that everybody might go, what? And finally, you can show funny videos. This last one, it speaks for itself. The sound may or may not work, but you'll get the idea. Let's see if it works. Oops, I think I'm in mute. Let's see. Nope, it's not going to work. Well, you can show funny videos, and for this one, it's not seeming to work, of course. Okay, then you can show like you're an expert and it doesn't work. But it's in terms of this one, this guy completely goes bonker on his computer. But there's things that you can do. You can put in little 30-second videos. You can play with it. So there's ways of using Zoom and humor to put humor into your presentation. Marjane.
All right, thank you very much, Sue. We have just a little bit of time now for the panel presentation. We're going to add in one more of our funny members, Akeem Bennett. Akeem will join us on the panel. Akeem is an accountant, a father, and a long-distance pickleball player. Please welcome Akeem Bennett along with the rest of the panel. And back to Tom Hobbs, the man in the hat, who will facilitate this portion.
Well, starting off with Akeem, let's go ahead and get us all spotlighted up here so we can all be seen. Akeem, you helped, or you're one of the founders of Find Your Funny.
Mhm.
What's one thing that you've seen that helped you in your world? By the way, his world has to do with financial and adding numbers. What's one thing that you've learned and seen and you've practiced to bring humor into your world?
One of the key things is very simple. You don't determine if you are funny by any means. Other people do. If other people aren't laughing, you probably aren't funny. On the flip side, I've had multiple people, some that are on this Zoom right now, say, I'm not funny, and they are downright hilarious. Oh my gosh, just so funny. I have found that having a little bit of humor when I speak to people, it causes them to smile, it puts them at ease, and when you're asking someone about their financials, You really want them to be at ease. It really helps, Tom. It's almost like they just want to talk to me and tell me all their deepest, darkest secrets. Oh, go ahead and put that in the mail. I'll put my address in the chat, Tom. I appreciate it. You all saw your witnesses. He's paying me for this information. But that's one of the key things, Tom. Really finding these small spaces where you can add just a little bit of humor, make folks laugh, make them smile. Everyone's more willing to work with you.
Excellent, excellent. Let's bring Rosemary in on this now. Rosemary, we're going to add you to the spotlight here. Akeem said in work and business. Give me an example in your work in the past, before you started practicing so much, that you found humor was going to help and that encouraged you now to keep it going.
I found humor very, very young. We it was a very, I was in a home that was very a lot of anger, and we were told not to cry, and my sister was a crier, so I would say, let's sing a song. And it just gave me humor that even now, my husband was having a heart condition, which we thought he was having a heart attack a few years ago. I was nervous and I said, let's sing a song. And he looked at me and said, let's kill you and I'll live. So humor is a big thing in my life. It has just, it's just wonderful. And I think humor makes the world a better place.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Let's bring Francine in on this as well. Francine, who is the fun? Oh, I won't say that because that wouldn't be fair. How do you bring in a pet to make it so funny? Because you brought in for your contest speech was this goofy dog. And I have to admit, the first 2 or 3, 7 times that I heard that speech, I didn't know who you were talking about until you learned to clarify it. But how did you bring that pet in so we all knew that pet and his actions were so funny?
Feedback. It all made sense to me because I live with the dog. It all made sense with me because I lived the situation. But I didn't understand how people were perceiving me until I started getting that feedback. That's why Tom just alluded, he heard that speech 20 or 30 times. Well, guess what? So did Teresa's club, and so did who else is here? Akeem. I did it several times in World of Difference. And let's see, I think I did it in one of Amanda's clubs. So I did it in clubs all over the world. And I even got some international mentors to make sure they could understand it too. So I changed maybe 1 or 2 words each time just to make it more clear and easier for the audience to understand. So they were right there in the story with me.
Marvelous, marvelous. And that's exactly what I witnessed over the past year with that. We're going to bring Sue in on this here as part of our group. As, had fun there. I lost everybody. We're going to keep Sue going right now. Sue, you love to bring in your cats. You and I have known each other since the pandemic started. And I brought in my cat the first time. And did you take it serious or did you see how ornery I was being? How do you incorporate cat themes so well?
Well, number one, when you grow, when you live with them and you can't help it. I mean, yes, I could close them out of my room, but you just gotta, they're coming in and you gotta be ready for them, and you can get mad or you can say, oh, well, they're here. Yeah, Tom, of course, with your little prop, I could tell it was joking. And so again, I think it's playing along with it. When I see the cat and she's showing her privates to the world, I sort of have some say, well, okay, here we go. Here's the thing, talking, if I'm talking about cat neutering, well, here it is right here. So ways of working in when they show things that you don't want them to show.
Oh, yes. That works well. We're going to bring Marjane in with the two of us. During the pandemic, we got together. We had a lot of fun because we started playing cards in a group activity. How can others do that as well to just add humor? How did that work out so well?
I see Sue laughing because Sue was part of the card group. Why did it work so well? Well, back then it was new to everybody and we created ways to make it work. We just made ways to have fun. And I think you can do that whether you're in person or online. Just relax and have fun with it and realize that, you know, sometimes things don't work perfectly, but yeah, sometimes you need very large props. I think Rosemary could appreciate those large props. Oh,
Somebody,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Gotta be careful what things you lean on when technology happens. Speaking of technology, I'm going to add one here real quick. Notice this screen. My Tom Hobbs, the extra monitor, you see the little Brady Bunch group? Can you identify everybody in there? Susan Schultz, who do you see that maybe wasn't on Channel 4 at 4:30 in the afternoon?
That's a little on the small side for me at this point.
Okay, we're going to make it full size.
Let's see the gentleman in the middle with the bow tie. And it almost looks like William Hobbs.
William Hobbs, yeah. We made several of these up for Find Your Funny. It had different people in there, and that was just a simple way of adding a bit of a twist, because we were all complaining about the Brady Bunch situation in the scenes. So that was my fun picture we did quite a while back. We've done that. Let's bring everybody on, and anybody out there, questions for the panel. We're going to have everybody up here, and we're going to give a few shots out, unmute. Full panel. What's some questions that you either popped up during their presentation or you would like to ask specifically?
What's your best technique when you toss out what you think is humorous and it bombs? What's your best recovery?
Do you have anybody you want to send that to or on our panel? Who would like to pop up with that?
I can take that one. My best suggestion for that is if it works, that's great. If it doesn't, if it's part of the story that moves your message ahead, people won't notice. Maybe pause in case somebody's laughing, but otherwise just go ahead with your message as if you were not expecting a laugh.
Marvelous, marvelous. Anybody want to add to that on our panel? We're doing well. Teresa.
I'll add on to that, Tom.
Okay.
So again, I think it goes to the point of you might include phrases, words, anything that you think can add humor, whether you're in conversation or to your speech. But the idea is to not necessarily try to make it a punchline. A punchline, you cannot go forward with the same attitude if it falls through, if it fails, because you've already fallen on your face as your joke falls to the floor. The idea is if you say something, you want it to be a little humorous, be prepared that not everyone might get it, but you just keep on going. It should not slow you down simply because you have something bomb. And when you don't let it slow you down, when you either take a little pause and just keep going or just ignore it, just act like it happened, we move forward. We're not going to act like it didn't happen, because it did happen. We let it happen, we move forward and just keep on going. That's when you can truly allow yourself to shine through, and it adds that humor to your personality versus to the presentation that you're trying to give.
Very true, very true. Marjane?
That kind of brought up something else that kind of made me think that a lot of times people, I think, are told, Toastmasters are told, start with a joke. That's usually not a very good idea because of the exact reason Akeem said. Not everyone is going to laugh. Maybe no one will laugh. And then you're just sort of flat. So to start with a story, something that you think is humorous, that's fine, but not something that requires the punchline.
Very good. And I learned from some of my mentors, Craig Valentine, Darren LaCroix, these great people who past world champions, that when you're using humor, but you're billed as a speaker or a trainer, your audience expects a speaker and a trainer. They're not expecting a stand-up comic. They're not expecting that. So when you do put out a joke or a story that's humorous and it doesn't quite elevate really high, that's fine. They're not expecting more than that. So when you do the next one and it goes better, all right, they're already on your side with you. The one thing you always want to do is give your audience permission to laugh. So if you do a little self-deprecation joke and, I wear a hat, just to keep the hair from my arms not falling off. What? Redirection. I transplant my hair to my arms. It's a better place. I can see it that way. That gives a permission to laugh. Open to anybody in our audience here. We do know this is going to be recorded for in the future. Feel free to reach out, and you'll see it in the chat, to Find Your Funny Toastmasters. We're happy to bring you in and visit with us. We meet twice a month, the first and third Sundays. Look it up.
Second and fourth.
Second and fourth.
You seconded it? Is this part of Robert Rules of Order already? All right, our time is flying by. Thank you so much. Rosemary, can you answer part of her question there?
I can real quick. I keep a bar stool right next to me when I'm standing because it's pretty much the same height, so I can just reach for it. And if I have two props, I have a bar stool on each side so I can take it on either hand.
I keep
do
a few
that
bar
too,
props
Brandon.
myself.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I usually keep a drink on mine, but that's different.
All right. Oscar put in some great comments in the group. I thank you, my friend Oscar, Susan Schultz, Linda Ramroth, all these great people in the room. Others, you get to watch this future. Let's hear from each of our presenters real quick. One closing thought: why humor is so easy to incorporate as a speaker, presenter, or trainer. Let's start with Sue, followed by Francine.
Humor is good to put in and it breaks the ice. People realize that you can make a subject such as CPR, you can make it fun and they'll actually pay attention.
Exactly. Francine, followed by Rose.
Well, learning how to use humor, I have completely changed my path from corporate trainer to children's book author and children's entertainer. It can happen.
Marvelous. Rosemary, followed by Akeem.
I think humor is great, especially if you're in a situation. Everyone wants to smile. Everyone wants to laugh and feel good. So whatever you have to do, if it's silly, people like silly. People like to laugh and smile. So just let humor go and enjoy life.
Tell you what, as leaders, people want to hang out with people having fun. Just think of that. Akeem, followed and wrapped up by Marjane.
For me, I love talking about things that you probably shouldn't talk about because it makes people very uncomfortable. But you know what makes people very comfortable? When we share a smile about something that we probably shouldn't be smiling about, but now it opens the door for us to talk about things that we probably shouldn't be talking about. So learn to let your laugh out, smile, let that humor even the playing ground, and maybe the worst of enemies become the best of friends over a terrible, terrible comment or joke.
Very good. And I've witnessed him do this. He's great at it. Marjane, and then we'll pass it back to Sandy, our host.
I love humor. It's gotten me through a lot of my own personal situations that can be painful or uncomfortable. And I think that it's something that can help others get through those same type of situations. So to me, it's just a way of adding a little light and a little kindness and a little laughter to everyone's world.
Awesome. Miss Sandy, thank you for letting our Find Your Funny friends and others come out and present and share a little bit of humor with your friends, your district, and the world, because this is open to the world. Come visit Find Your Funny Toastmasters. On which dates was that? Sunday, the 2nd and 4th at 6:30
p.m. Eastern Time.
All on Zoom. Miss Sandy, thank you for letting us come play. We give it back to you.
Well, it's been my pleasure to have you. And I am so impressed with all of you, and I thank you. And I thank everyone for attending. And I hope you walked away with some information that you can use. Thank you. And have a safe travel home on Zoom.